A Forced Retreat from the Louisiana Coast by Jared Elswick. Today's date is October 6, 2019, and the class venue is EVS 501 Environmental Management. As of 2014, CO2 levels in the atmosphere was 43% above the pre-industrial levels back in 1750. As CO2 is emitted, the global temperatures are climbing, already up 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit since 1880. This in turn drives glacial melting that is causing rising sea levels that are inundating low-lying regions across the globe, especially along the Louisiana coast. Because of this, people along the coast are being forced to retreat farther inland. Our vision statement is to set the global standard for protecting people and coastal regions from the effects of climate change. When finding the right management alternatives, the key is to start out right. In finding the right alternatives, ideas can also come from multiple sources, including regulating communities, management agendas, and stakeholders. It is key when designing the management alternative that stakeholders agree on the scope and the objectives of each alternative. We can also pull inspiration from other countries, including the Dutch water management system. All of these should be considered when choosing among the different alternatives. When managing regions, some of the alternatives available to us are building hardened structures. These hardened structures can include seawalls, bulkheads, jetties, reventadors, growings, and storm surge barriers like the Muslim Curie. Often hardened structures require an upfront cost along with the maintenance cost over time, which is why they are often used along with in more populated regions of the coast. Each of these alternatives to coastal management comes with its own pros and cons, and may work well in some scenarios while not in others. Natural-based management of the coastal region are another management alternative. These alternatives include things like beach nutrients, bulldozing, scrapings, dome additions, and vegetation of areas. While this is often less expensive than hardened structures, they often require routine maintenance and action plans in order to implement them properly. You can also build things that mimic the natural cycles, like permeable pavements. There are also alternatives that include simply reducing the effects. Things that can be done politically to help manage coastal regions are things like zoning, building codes, and non-structure things like land use strategy. Zoning alternatives can be used to do things like setting hazard zones or setting the limits on how many buildings can be built or reconstructed in construction zones, thus limiting the number of buildings, lowering the density of development in areas at risk. Building codes can also be set to protect buildings that are close to the coast by only allowing ones that can withstand high winds and flooding conditions to be built. Alternatives such as land use strategy can also be used to purchase up land, thus not allowing people to buy the land for development in the first place. You can also use new technology in building things like floating farms that can help you live with the effects of climate change while also reducing the impacts of it. We can also teach kids to swim with shoes and clothing to help mitigate the risk of them drowning in case a flood does occur. Relocation and abandonment can be used as a last resort to remove people from areas that cannot be saved by any other alternatives. The success of an adaptive management project requires goals that are obtainable. The success criteria for this project, first and foremost, are the safety of the people. The success criteria of this project can gauge the risk each person had before and after the project, and how successful it is can be based off of how much that risk has been reduced and their future well-being and safety in mind. Second, it is finding a balance between the needs of people and the needs of the environment. Both needs must be met for this project to be successful. We must find a way that protects the beach and the people without jeopardizing the natural balance. The more balanced the project is, the more successful the project will be deemed. Finally, climate change and sea level rise are only going to get worse, and it would be foolish to think that they can be stopped and that the whole coast can be protected from its effects. Which, with that being said, success criteria would have to involve how much we can mitigate these effects. Success could be set on how long we can preserve areas from being inundated while fortifying farther inland, how many acres, and also take into account how many acres we preserve from being inundated. Thank you all for watching my post and have a good day.